Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the 2083/84 national budget. Now, I know budgets can sound super dry and full of complicated government jargon, but we're going to bypass all of that today. We're going to break this down simply to show you exactly what these numbers mean for you, your business, and quite frankly, the country's entire future.
So here is our Follow the Money roadmap for today. 1. The big picture. 2. Infrastructure and energy. 3. Human capital and society. 4. Employment and digital economy. And finally, 5. Challenges and reality.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the big picture, understanding the massive scale of the budget. Now, before we start throwing huge numbers around, let's just make sure we're all on the exact same page. What actually is a budget? Well, simply put, it's the government's master plan. It dictates exactly how much money they expect to earn through taxes and precisely where they plan to spend it over the next year. Every single rupee signals the government's exact priorities. Okay, brace yourselves for this number. The total budget for this fiscal year is a staggering 18.6 trillion Nepali rupees. Or, to put it in local terms, 18 karba, 60 arba. That is literally a massive, almost incomprehensible amount of money. Think of it as the total financial fuel needed to keep the entire country running for an entire year. But here's the catch when you slice up that giant pie. A massive chunk, about 11 karba, is swallowed up right away by recurrent spending. You know, the day-to-day running costs of the government, like salaries and office supplies. Then, another 4 karba or so goes straight into financial management, which is basically just paying off old debts. And that leaves a much smaller, very specific slice, about 3.5 karba, for actual development and capital expenditure. That smallest slice, that's the money that actually physically builds the country. So, you might be wondering, what's the ultimate goal of spending all this money? Well, the government has set a primary target of hitting a 6 to 7% economic growth rate this year. And to help fuel that ambition, they've dedicated a specific 50 to 60 arba dollars directly toward boosting domestic production and employment.
Moving on to Section 2. Infrastructure and energy development. Building the nation.
So, where is that 3.5 karba money development money actually going? It turns out the government is putting a heavy financial priority on expanding asphalt and connectivity. Roads and highways alone are getting over 1 karba. That's followed closely by energy and hydropower, sitting at about 70 to 80 arba. And then expanding and maintaining airports secures a solid 30 to 40 arba. The focus on mobility and power here is absolutely undeniable. If we drill down into exactly what this money buys on the ground, 20 to 30 arba is carved out just for mega projects. We're talking things like the highly anticipated fast track. Then that energy budget translates directly into new hydropower generation facilities and the critical transmission lines we desperately need to carry that electricity to homes and factories. These aren't just lines on a spreadsheet, guys. They're the literal physical foundation for our future economy. Which brings us to Section 3, Human Capital and Society. Empowering the people. Now, let's pivot from physical, concrete, to human-centric investments. The government is making a massive, deliberate investment in a smarter future generation. Education receives a towering 1.8 karba. That completely dwarfs Social Security, which sits at over 1 karba, and health, which gets about 80 to 90 arba. To put those national numbers into an on-the-ground reality, that 1.8 karba for education is going to fund vital school reforms, digital learning, and technical education. Meanwhile, the health budget is driving hospital expansions and rural health insurance so care can actually reach remote areas. And that Social Security budget, that guarantees senior citizen allowances and crucial social aid for our most vulnerable populations. And of course, we absolutely can't forget the backbone of the economy, right? Agriculture. The budget allocates 50 to 60 arba here. This is highly practical stuff. It guarantees fertilizer and seed subsidies so everyday farmers can actually afford to plant. It funds the expansion of vital irrigation systems, and it pushes for modernizing farming techniques so we can increase our overall yields. Let's shift gears to Section 4, Employment and Digital Economy, the future economy. What about the youth? Well, the government has earmarked 30 to 40 arba specifically targeting youth and employment. But instead of just creating temporary public jobs, this money is actually geared toward vital startup business support and self-employment programs. It's really designed to give young entrepreneurs the seed capital and the structural support they need to build their own businesses from the ground up. Hand in hand with that youth push is the Digital Nepal Initiative. We're looking at an IT sector investment of 15 to 20 ARBA. The goal here is basically modernizing the entire economy. They want to roll out accessible e-governance, which hopefully means far fewer long lines at government offices, and they're building a robust, nationwide digital payment infrastructure. All right, let's hit Section 5, Challenges and Reality, the financial strain. Time for a crucial reality check. There is a pretty stark, looming contrast hidden in these numbers. The government aims to collect about 14 to 15 karba in tax revenue by widening the net. Yet, the total public debt is sitting at a massive 24 to 25 karba. We're impartially reporting the data here, but navigating this massive gap between what the country earns and what it owes is a very real structural hurdle for policymakers moving forward. Furthermore, the budget data objectively outlines three main structural problems that act as speed bumps to the nation's growth. First, low capital expenditure execution. Basically, the government often struggles to actually spend the development money it sets aside. Second, we have a heavy dependence on foreign imports, which just drains money right out of the country. And third, persistent unemployment continues to challenge our workforce. Which, leads us to the ultimate question. Because having an 18.6 trillion rupee budget is really only half the battle. The real question is, will these funds actually be spent correctly, transparently, and on time? I actually want to leave you with a powerful thought taken straight from our source material today. The amount is huge, the plan is good, but implementation is the key to success. A budget is just a piece of paper until it's executed, right? Will the government be able to turn these massive numbers into real-world impact, or will we be having this exact same conversation next year? Keep following the money, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next explainer.